She wouldn't. It's my birthday.
PTB, the T stands for testing. I'm gonna die on this hill.
Higher duration of the other protections. And you might ask, well, we saw in the previous PTB that we're weaponizing both of these effects to go for aggression.
Okay, Behaviour. We need to have another talk. Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing fine today. It is I, Jesse, aka Survival Punk, aka the Wide Guard, aka... oh no. It's that guy. So, the devs, not too long ago, have released the 9.3.0 PTB.
PTB, the T stands for testing.
And to no one's surprise, they are still dead set on the anti-slugging from the 9.2.0 PTB. Told you so. By the way, they have changed how it works slightly, and made it slightly less egregious, but they shouldn't be adding this shit at all, so big L. Additionally, they are doubling down on their anti-tunneling buffs. Again, told you so, but we will get into that shortly. They did, however, back off from the tunneling penalties. For now. Time will show I was right about them being dead set on that as well. Mark my words. Now, despite the fact I do consider myself a killer main, I would like to remind you I enjoy both roles almost equally. And in fact, play Survivor more often than Killer, believe it or not. That said, honestly, despite popular belief, most killer mains like myself just want a fun and balanced game for both sides, especially in the case of solo Survivor, which is probably the least fun way to play the game right now. Further evidenced by my personal disdain for both Nurse and Blight as killers. I'm not hearkening on survivors and survivor buffs because I'm biased towards killers. I despise unchecked balance in the game across the board. But I digress. So, without further ado, let's look at the changes, shall we? Starting, of course, with their tunneling changes. Now, Behaviour, when I compared your elusive status effect to Off the Record, I did so because I didn't want to be hyperbolic. You see, instead of comparing your elusive status effect to 3 separate perks, those perks of course being Iron Will, Distortion, and Dance With Me, I simply compared it to Off the Record. Cause at the end of the day, that's all the elusive status effect really is. A diet, vanilla, Off the Record. Now, as much as I doubt anyone in Behaviour's dev team is actually watching my videos, I mean, let's be honest guys, if they're not listening to Ots Darva, we all are falling on deaf ears at this point. But it really feels like you are watching my videos, because it's almost as though you saw I was comparing elusive to Off the Record and said to yourselves, ooh, that's a good idea. Because now, guess what, everybody? The unhook benefits no longer last 10 seconds. They've been increased to a whole 30.
I couldn't make this shit up. I couldn't make this shit up if I tried. I'm sad that I lack the talent to make this shit up.
30 fucking seconds. Which includes the endurance, by the way. Yeah, that's right. The unhook buffs are 30 seconds shy of a unironic base kit OG Off the Record. And don't forget, That also includes the 10% haste. And you still get a 32-meter aura read on the killer for 10 seconds. Oh, and in case you thought you were clever and you can get around the stealth aspect of the unhook benefits by playing killers like Nemesis or Plague, don't worry, they got you covered. The survivor makes no sounds, coughing and vomiting included. And the sugar on the cream? These effects linger for 3 seconds after being healed. So even if they heal under hook, they can take that 10% haste and sprint burst to Narnia and back. All the while, for 3 whole seconds, you have no idea which direction they went, and they know exactly where you are. Wow, Behaviour really covered all the bases here. You even made sure to give them immunity to AFK crows. Listen, guys, if these changes actually do make it through into the game live, and you're still getting tunneled out of the game in like 3 or 5 minutes, then outside of giving survivors base kit assault rifles, I don't know how to fucking help you, okay? Is it starting to sink in yet what I meant last video when I talked about pandering to casuals? This is the level of incompetence that Behaviour is trying to pander to. We are talking about players who borderline need power armor and a literal stealth field on unhook to not die in under 5 minutes. Oh, and a little tidbit I left out thus far, they returned collision to survivors on unhook. One of the main changes they made in the PTB that I actually liked because it actually brought some level of skill to the act of blocking M1s on unhook. All of which culminating into hilariously the reason they made these changes. Get this, they made these changes to try and prevent survivors from using the unhook benefits aggressively.
You're a donut! You're so stupid! You're so stupid! You're stupid! Dumb!
Dev note. We've reduced the killer aura reveal duration to limit a survivor's ability to plan aggressive saves, while under the effects of the unhook protections. Additionally, we've removed the no collision effect from the unhook protections to prevent survivors from phasing ahead of the killer to use their unhook protections aggressively. We will be closely monitoring these during the PTB and look forward to the feedback.
PTB, the T stands for testing.
Yeah, this is a common theme throughout the PTB as a whole. The devs make a change with a stated goal in mind, but the changes they make achieve the exact opposite of their stated goal. Honestly, the devs are either incompetent and stupid, or that's how they see us. Well, you might be asking, what exactly do killers get? Surely they reintroduced killer hooking bonuses, right?
No.
Unique hook bonuses. When hooking a survivor that is different than the last hook survivor, the killer gains the following: Bloodlust, Tier 1, for 15 seconds, and a 10% blood point multiplier on the match score at the end of the trial. Hope you weren't expecting anything else, cause that's all you get.
Wow, no.
Oh, and by the way, the bloodlust goes away if you kick a pallet, enter chase, or use your power. The only 2 killers in the entire game I could even think of that can make actual use out of this buff are Skull Merchant and Trapper. But that's not even true, because Skull Merchant still needs to throw out drones, and Trapper still needs to place traps. And blood points Really?
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Let me tell you something.
We don't care.
Jerry,
I know we all miss the blood point bonus of the original barbecue and chili, but at this stage in the game, no one really cares about blood points, man. Thanks, Behaviour. I was really having trouble fighting against my killer anxiety, but it all went away the moment I realized I get a little bit extra blood points at the end of the game. Furthermore, as much as I understand not wanting to accidentally buff the strongest killers in the game, but maybe we shouldn't be basing our buffs off the two weakest killers in the game. Just saying. Now, once again, I'm not egotistical enough to actually believe Behaviour watched my first video on the PTB 9.2.0, but it sure fucking feels like they did. Cause looking at the new hooking effects, it is as though they saw my "you get nothing" joke and said, hold my beer. Listen, Behaviour, if I knew calling your killer hooking buffs worthless and quoting Willy Wonka would result in us literally getting nothing, I might have reserved my judgment slightly.
Clearly mistakes were made.
Oh, who am I kidding? You were going to do this regardless. And let's face it, I'm not that important. Dev note. In the previous PTB, the killer bonuses were complex and had many layers. Yeah, many layers, almost as though they gave agency? They also made killer gameplay very linear. Hook, kick gen, down next survivor. Rinse and repeat. No, they did the exact opposite of that Behaviour, because as dogshit as the bonuses were, in my opinion, at the end of the day, you had options. Do I use my haste to leverage another down? Do I use my Pop Goes the Weasel to kick a generator? Do I use my haste and my aura reveal to reposition myself on a part of the map where a generator the survivors are actually going for is? Do I ignore the benefits altogether and proxy camp the hook? In which case, during the proxy camping process, I would be benefiting from the haste. As bad as the benefits were, there was agency and choice. What you're doing is the exact opposite. To retain player agency and the unexpected moments, we've simplified the bonuses to only one: gaining Bloodlust. Why Bloodlust? Because haste stacked with killer powers. Yeah, that's right, they're outright admitting they switched to Bloodlust to prevent you from strategizing, which made stronger killers even stronger, widening the gap between them and weaker killers. No, this is bullshit, because even in the last PTB, those stronger killers you're referring to benefited from weaker variations of the buffs, which was the appropriate way to handle that. Widening the gap between them and weaker killers, reusing Bloodlust means that killers who use their power, Nurse, Ghoul, etc., will lose the bonus, while killers who are typically use their... Seriously, who the fuck proofread this shit? Who typically use their basic attack more will keep it for the full duration. We've also removed the penalties from the previous PTB in the spirit of keeping player choice an important factor in how the game unfolds. I love how they snuck in that little tidbit at the end. Hey guys, we know we're leaving you stranded in the middle of a desert with nothing but a single canteen, but it could be worse. At least we didn't fill your canteen with piss. Moving on to the slugging reduction update, I will admit it is less egregious than the one they had in 9.2.0, but really, Behaviour, you should not be adding this. After being downed by the killer, the resolve bar appears. The resolve bar takes 120 seconds to fill. Progress does not reset between downs. So, already super similar to what they had in 9.2.0. But they added an additional 30 seconds to the bar. That is where any consideration for the killer dies. Because when I said slightly less egregious, I meant literally slightly less egregious. The resolve bar fills 33% faster for each additional survivor currently in the dying state. Once the resolve bar is full, the survivors gain the ability to pick themselves up from the dying state for the rest of the match. Now, to avoid a hour-long tangent on why this is absolutely absurd, I will merely point you to my previous PTB videos. But in short, these changes makes not only slugging for the win impossible, but it makes 95% of tactical slugging impossible. You gain nothing whatsoever from slugging. Not to mention, these changes almost directly affect killers like Oni or Plague without really bothering Nurse or Blight all that much. Reason being, if you're going to play an S-tier killer anyways, it's more beneficial to focus on tunneling. Oh, and by the way, tagged at the very bottom like the little cancer cell it is, added a custom game setting to disable this feature. Once again, just like in 9.2.0, they're admitting that this change is completely and utterly unbalanced. Because if it was balanced, they wouldn't give competitive Dead by Daylight players the ability to get rid of it, now would they? Now, on the bright side, they at least got rid of the base kit tenacity, at least in the sense that you can't crawl and recover simultaneously, but they did keep the additional crawl speed bonus that ramps up over time. And if you watched my previous PTB videos, you already got a pretty good idea of exactly how absurd that shit gets. Now, finally, let's talk about the anti-face camping they added to the game, which, believe it or not, is probably the worst part of these changes. For starters, what fucking face camping? Who, in the year 2025, is actually hard face camping? Like, rub your brain cells together for more than 2 seconds, Behaviour. Not only did you take away the killer's ability to grab survivors mid-unhook, you already got rid of hard face camping with your previous anti-camping changes, which I, as well as most of the community, was personally fine with, by the way. I mean, you really shouldn't be able to just face camp as Bubba in the basement. That shit was toxic. But these changes are ridiculous. The first change they made is the longer the killer spends time within the radius of the hook, the faster the resolve bar ramps up. Very similar to how the new slugging mechanic ramps up the more survivors that are slugged. Starting at ×2 speed after 10 seconds, ramping up to ×4 speed at 20 seconds. Which, as you can see in the footage here, is stupid fast. But don't let the footage fool you, because they also changed the radius to 20 meters. Allow me to put that radius into perspective for you. That 20-meter radius is roughly the radius of the entire RPD lobby. Yeah, if you hook someone in the center of RPD, the only way to avoid the anti-camp mechanic is to go to either wing. You can't even defend the center generators if you have someone hooked in the RPD lobby. And even worse, the resolve bar is now visible to other survivors while hooked, which means not only do survivors now get a visual indication of whether or not you are leaving the area of the hooked survivor, but they know exactly when the resolve bar is filled, if it was filled, meaning they know they don't have to come and unhook you, effectively removing pressure from hooking. Alright, Behaviour, let's let's get this straight. You're telling me that I cannot tunnel to win and or apply pressure. I'm not allowed to slug to win and or apply pressure. And now you're taking away all the pressure of hooking. What the fuck do you expect killers to do? The answer is simple, by the way, for those of you who are also questioning this. They don't want you to win. Your role isn't about winning. They're turning your role into a participation role. Your job as killer is no longer to kill survivors. It is to facilitate a specific experience for the survivors. Wait a minute, that's weird. What was it that Behaviour said during the live stream again?
And one of the things that, we came to realize after the last PTB is that goes against some of our core pillars. One of our core pillar is chaos. And, not chaos in the sense that everything is all over the place, but things are unpredictable, right? The player has, and the second one is player agency. So the player has control in how they want to play the game and how they want to approach each different scenario. And I think that's really important. And the unpredictable chaos comes from those player decisions. And so if we put a feature in that removes that, then we are not true to our core pillars. And that's usually a no-go for things in game development, so.
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying? Oh my god, stop fucking lying.
Oh, you're so full of shit, Behaviour. If chaos and unpredictability is actually important to you, then why are you streamlining the game to the point that every match looks almost exactly the same? If player agency is actually important to you, then why are you making Survivor borderline autopilot while simultaneously making killers have only one choice on how to play the game? Down Survivor, pick them up immediately, hook them immediately, then get as far away as possible. Rinse and repeat. All the while, hoping against hope that they're somehow so inefficient they don't accidentally finish the generators in 6 or 7 minutes.
You idiot. You're honestly an idiot. I don't know what's wrong with you. But your ego is pissing me off. You think you're the shit. You think you're so high and mighty. You're literally comparing yourself to a god, whereas you're far from it.
And while we're on the subject of the PTB, let's re-examine this little gem, shall we?
PTB, the T stands for testing. I'm gonna die on this hill. I probably will.
Yes, you're right. Testing is important, but sometimes ideas are so bad at conception, you don't need to test them to know they're bad ideas. Some ideas are like seatbelts, an important thing that can serve an important purpose and is deserving of testing. However, some ideas are like loading a Glock, pointing it at your dick, and pulling the fucking trigger. Point is, do you really need to put that to the test to know that's a bad idea to do?
PTB, the T stands for
Donut!
Literally every idea in this PTB is either a bad idea or directly contradicts the stated goal for why the idea is being implemented in the first place. For example, they're finally nerfing Syringe and Septic Agent, 2 very powerful medkit add-ons that have been problematic for a very long time. But why are they nerfing these items? Well, their stated goal in the PTB live stream was that they didn't like the fact these items were used to extend chases. More specifically, the syringe, which was in their minds supposed to be used to heal passively outside of chase. Now, with this goal in mind, the changes they made to Septic Agent make sense. What they did to Septic Agent is they changed it to where it adds more efficiency while healing. 15% to be exact. But if that's your stated goal with these changes, then why did you make the syringe cure exhaustion On use, you've decided that syringe is too strong because it's used to extend chase. So you decide to nerf it by buffing it and making it even better at extending chase. Bravo, Behaviour, bravo. You are truly the minds of our generation. This idea is stupid on paper. All you had to do to figure out that this was a bad idea was read it out loud. We did not need a PTB to know that this was broken. Yeah, sure, if you squint really, really hard, it's kind of sort of a nerf because he can no longer use syringe to heal passively while working on a generator. But who cares? Because the trade-off is like 1,000 times stronger. To paint this into perspective, what this item translates to is you can use your nearly depleted medkit to double sprint burst away from a killer. You could literally pre-run sprint burst away from the killer, and if the killer decided to commit the chase and hunt you down, you can sprint burst pre-run again. Now, this video is running a little long, but there is one more thing I would like to talk about, and that is the perk changes. First off, Babysitter and Borrowed Time are getting buffed unbelievably. Babysitter. After unhooking a survivor, see the survivor and the killer's aura for 20, 25, and 30 seconds. If you unhook a survivor, you have 30 seconds of wall hacks on the killer. That's ridiculous, especially when in the hands of a Swift. And Borrowed Time, now what that does is survivors you unhook gain the ability to fully recover from the dying state for the next 60, 80, to 100 seconds. Translation: any survivor you unhook has nearly 2 minutes of Unbreakable, regardless of the state of the struggle bar. And on top of that, Off the Record's getting a pretty big buff as well, more than doubling its duration. But of course they gotta give these perks hilariously busted buffs, cause otherwise why would you use them? You're getting the old versions for free. And if that wasn't annoying enough on its own, they're taking Breakdown, an already annoying perk to deal with, and buffing the fuck out of it. I mean, sure, they're cutting the time frame in which the hook is broken in half, but they're giving you a 100% healing buff for the next 30, 60, and 90 seconds. As if healing wasn't busted enough already. And arguably the most busted perk change of all is Wicked. It still allows you to unhook yourself in the basement at 100% success rate. But when you are unhooked from the basement, you gain up to 50% healing progress. And there is no loud noise notification, so the killer doesn't even know it happened. Oh, and in case you were wondering, yes, that 50% progress stacks with Resurgence, meaning the act of unhooking you, or you unhooking yourself, in fact heals you a full health state. Watch this Ots Darva clip to get a really good idea of exactly how busted this fucking is.
If he hooks me outside, he's fine. Oh my god. Alright. Let's do it. Anyway, I'm healthy. I'm 30% faster, by the way. Do you see how fast I go? I could actually go on a gen here and still have my sprint burst. I'm gonna get on this gen and still have my sprint burst. How is this fair, man? How is this fair? How is it fair that I can just go like halfway across the map without even using my sprint burst up, but I still have it?
He was able to unhook himself because he was hooked in the basement using Wicked, which comboed with Resurgence meant he was fully healed when unhooking himself. And not only that, but this health state he gained did not count as him healing, so he maintained the 30 seconds of unhook benefits, which comboed with Fixated means he had roughly 30% haste while walking, allowing him to get to a generator in record time while maintaining his sprint burst, during which he has full vision on where the killer is due to the 10 seconds of aura reading granted by the same unhook benefits. And the moment the killer found him again, he was able to use his saved sprint burst to sprint burst away and pre-run him, and if he had a medkit with the new syringe, he could have double sprint bursted away from the killer. And the sugar on the cream? Even if the killer found him shortly after getting off the hook and hit him, he would still have roughly 30 seconds of endurance, meaning the killer would have had to effectively hit him 3 times to down him, even if he found him immediately after he unhooked himself. How far gone is this game's balance when we are actively fostering a meta in which running to the far back corner of the basement is the optimum play? But surely you must be thinking, if they're doing all these busted perk changes for survivors, killers are getting some perk changes, right? We're getting 1 perk change, and it's a nerf.
I'm done. No!
Furtive Chase. Whenever your obsession is hooked, gain 1 token, up to 3, 4, or 5. For each token, decrease your terror radius by 10%. When your obsession is unhooked, the obsession transfers to the rescuer. Yeah, you heard that right. They are taking Furtive Chase, an otherwise decent perk that used to be dog shit before it was buffed and changed, and they're reverting it back to its dog shit state. Why? Because it's one of the only fucking perks in the game that'll actually synergize with the new Bloodlust mechanic, and we can't have killers with synergy now, can we? Dev note, with the Bloodlust bonus offered for unique hooks, the synergy with Furtive Chase was higher than we would have wanted. We've changed Furtive Chase to its previous iteration of affecting the terror radius without the downsides that it had. It's like they're actually admitting they don't want killers to have fun. It's like they're actually admitting that they don't want killers to be able to be strong or effective. They outright admit in the dev note that they are so terrified of killers actually finding a way of utilizing their dogshit hooking buff that they are more than willing to take a mid-tier perk like Furtive Chase that's only ever useful in specific strategies with specific builds or used on specific killers, and nerfing it to its previous unplayable dogshit state. God forbid killers actually synergize or strategize. Am I right or am I right? Obviously, we are nearing the end of this video, but there's one last thing I would like to talk about. I was on Twitter recently, and I saw this image in a post. As you can see, the names are redacted. In the post, they were lamenting the fact that their friend was tunneled and suggested that the PTB changes would be a good thing. Now, at first glance, you might be thinking, this person has a point, or at the very least, you will be feeling empathy for the situation they went through. Certainly, the devs would see this as further evidence that they are going in the right direction. Here's the truth of the matter. Though they say a picture says 1,000 words, in actuality, this tells us nothing. There is zero context here. A picture may be worth 1,000 words, but it tells us nothing about the millions of factors that could have played into this. Decisions that were made, decisions that weren't made, what happened, what didn't happen, what could have happened. Did they misplay? Did they fail a 360? Did they body block off hook? Did they heal off hook? Or at a bad time, or at a bad position? Did they camp a pallet and fail to time the stun correctly? Were they aggressively forcing a Jin? Were they playing around strong loops? They obviously weren't playing around Shack. Not in the screenshot, at least. Did they bring anti-tunnel? If they did bring anti-tunnel, did they misplay it? Did they pad into a dead zone by accident? Who was the killer? Was the killer an S tier? Were they Nurse or Blight if they were an S tier? Did the killer bring nowhere to hide and the team didn't clock it until it was too late? And although my last example doesn't apply to the situation in the picture, it is still a prevalent example, and that is, did the killer bring friends till the end plus nemesis, and it was just a case of really, really bad luck, etc., etc. And if the killer was hardcore tunneling and wasn't pressuring gens at all, why was only one gen done by that point? Assuming the killer ended each chase in roughly 30 seconds, that's still a total of 1 minute and 30 seconds. More than enough time to complete 2 or 3 gens worth of progress, depending on gen stacking, perks, and toolboxes. But there was only one. As far as we know, there could have been 1 or 2 nearly finished gens. Once again, this picture provides zero context. And I'll be honest, I find it very hard to believe that their team made 0 mistakes, lacked complete agency and accountability, and had no way, absolutely no way to avoid this outcome. And even if the killer did hard tunnel them out, and it really wasn't their fault at all, truth is probably in the middle, by the way, but I digress, you can't get mad at someone for using a strategy. I have made this example several times throughout my videos, but I might get a little miffed at my enemy jungler in League if they steal my farm, but I'm not going to crash out, quit the game, report them for anti-play, and go next. They're just employing strategy, even if it is a little cringe at times. Same thing with slugging, sure, but trying to win a game doesn't make you toxic, unless you were obviously trying to be toxic. Hitting on hook, excessive spinning, excessive nodding, bleeding out for the sake of bleeding out, smack talk in the endgame, etc., etc. But the point is, even if the killer was being toxic, self-agency, self-responsibility, and self-accountability matters. Do better. And with that, the only thing left to add, other than, well, thank you for watching, is if you're watching this on the 21st, later today, Behaviour will be doing another live stream. Yes, I know, very scary. But it will give us confirmation on how much of this horrendous bullshit will actually make it to the game at large. I would have had this video out sooner, but I had some life stuff get in the way. Primarily, my mother, I had to accompany her to the hospital where she had a surgery. She's fine, and the surgery went off without a hitch, so everything's cool on that front, but it did unfortunately delay this video. Family comes first after all. But with that all said and done, I'm going to end this video here. I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe, hit the bell, and as always, see ya.